Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. Listen, today we've got somebody on the show from my neck of the woods. Todd Russo, president of Reeis Air Conditioning and IS Mechanical, joins us today to talk all about his journey through the skilled trades all the way into entrepreneurship. Todd learned to love working with his hands and building at a young age. He went to high school here in Phoenix, where he worked with a contracting company. He also helped his family build a cabin. This eventually became the foundation for him to want to be a builder, even though he went to college for finance. Fast forward now, Todd owns and operates two mechanical brands in the Phoenix area, one that focuses on residential and one commercial. Listen in to hear many of the trials and tribulations Todd endured while building his empire and how you can incorporate that into your business. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and on our website at www.blueisthenewwhite.com to receive all the latest updates. You can now find this podcast on iHeartRadio, SiriusXM, and Pandora. As always, we rely on word of mouth from our listeners to further the mission. So if you enjoy this episode, please take a minute to rate it, review it, and share it. The future generations of tradespeople depend on it. They depend on you. So thank you again and enjoy this episode of Blue is the New White with Todd Russo. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Blue is the New White podcast. We've got a special guest for you today, Todd Russo. Russo, is that how you spell or say your last name?
That's correct.
All right, Russo. Todd Russo is with us today. I'm excited to talk to you, Todd, today about your journey through the trades and what our audience can possibly glean from that journey and what you're doing now. So, welcome to the Blue is the New White podcast, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so for those who don't know who you are, would you mind just kind of giving us a backstory, how you got to where you are today, where you're from, what was your journey that led you from then to now?
Sure. I born back east, family moved here, went to high school here in Phoenix. Actually worked for a contractor in high school. Enjoyed the process of building things. He was a general contractor. Went to college, came back, decided I wanted to be a builder in college. Went through that process, got out of college, started to become a superintendent, running subdivisions, went into the office, started effectively doing all the office jobs inside a home building company. Later moved to real estate development, ran a large real estate development company that single principal, no institutional capital partners, 2008 hit, world imploded. Ended up resigning my job in the beginning of 2009, the day after the Biden administration signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which is a big investment. They had a huge position or a huge investment in energy efficiency construction, which I had a pretty significant background in with my development job and my home building work. I had done some of the first energy efficient and green building programs with the builder that I worked for 5 years. And so I understood the green construction model. And so I started a business in 2009, a business called Reeis. We started with offices in California and Phoenix. At the time, I had a couple business partners. And effectively what we were going to do was retrofit homes. There was another bill passed in California that allowed you to set up special assessment districts in California counties. And then the county effectively, or this district effectively, would fund energy efficiency improvements. And with all the incentives that were available to you through tax credits and rebate programs with the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, I saw a huge opportunity in the market to go out there and create what ultimately was a little bit of a different product and a different model that didn't really exist. At the time, we called it a home performance contracting company. And what that meant is we went in and assessed homes, identified what they needed to make them more energy efficient, help procure financing and rebates and tax incentives, and then went out there and executed the construction. So what did that mean? That meant air conditioning, insulation, house ceiling, pressure mapping, what at the time we called energy auditing. So we started this home performance and Energy Star company. I had two partners at the time in an office in Phoenix, office in California. California, we really weren't going. We were kind of moving slow. We were walking slow because we were working on the entitlement process of setting up special assessment districts. inside Riverside and San Bernardino County. So we worked through that process with the municipalities, got those districts up and running. At the same time, we had to figure out how to do the blocking and tackling of making homes more energy efficient and doing the construction. So we started a Phoenix company. Got going 2009, 2010, we really started improving houses. By 2011, we were the largest home performance with Energy Star contractor in the nation. We were doing more energy audits and retrofits than any. So APS and SRP, which were the utilities at the time, they rolled out their programs. And we were doing more retrofits and audits than all other contractors combined. At that point, by 2012, 2013, air conditioning contractors started catching up and started doing it as well. California started moving forward pretty aggressively. Freddie and Fannie sued the state of California. And because the loans that we were procuring were first positioned to their mortgages, and them being the largest mortgage holder in the nation, they didn't appreciate us putting notes in front of their mortgages, their first position mortgages, right? So that kind of prompted me to close our California office, buy out my California business partner. Got married in that time frame, wanted to start a family.
Is that still 2012, 2013?
Yeah, 2013.
Okay.
So 2013, end of 2013, we closed our office and I bought out the business partner in 2014. But 2013, wife and I wanted to start having a family. Living in Los Angeles was not probably the best location to have a family. We decided to move to Phoenix, bought a house out here, closed California in 2014, 2015, 2016, bought out my Phoenix business partner. And then I just started growing the business as a kind of whole house approach to air conditioning, if you will. So we were looking at how the home performed and determining what the best solution was. And so we kind of created a niche for ourselves in that we were addressing not only air conditioning replacement and repairs, but we were addressing airflow issues, ductwork issues, and then also the building envelope in the house, right? So then we just grew the business from there. Somewhere around 2015, probably about 2015, I started doing commercial new construction, grew that business. In 2018, I split the company into two different businesses, one that does the new construction work and one that is the Reeis brand. That other company was called IS Mechanical, which was just a kind of an offshoot of what our logo was at the time. When I separated the company in 2018, I also rebranded Reeis, new coloring, new logoing, that sort of thing. Try to create a little bit of separation between the two of them.
Sure.
Because in 2018, we made Reeis just entirely about being a customer-centric, kind of more white glove type service instead of, the new construction model on the commercial side, which is more driven towards efficiency and cost and everything. And so and just kind of went from there.
All right, man. Well, it's like drinking from a fire hose, man. You had a lot going on. All right, so let's unpack this a little bit and see if we can get our audience to understand a little bit more who you are, and then let's jump in, if you don't mind, to some of the tactics around that. I got some questions here. So you said you moved from back east. Where's back east?
I was born right outside of New York City, so my family's from there.
Okay.
My dad, he's a dentist. He didn't have any money to pay for dental school, so he did a program called the Indian Health Service. So when he got out of dental school, he moved my mom and the three kids. Well, two kids at the time. My brother was born in New Mexico, and he ran a dental clinic on an Indian reservation in the Four Corners. Oh. And then when that task was done, he ran a dental clinic in the Phoenix prison system for a short period of time, then started his practice.
Okay. All right, cool.
So that's how we got to Phoenix.
Gotcha. All right. And then, so you went to high school here in Phoenix. You worked for a contractor in high school. What did you go to college for?
I went to college for finance, but I always had the intention of being in home building.
Okay. So
I wanted to understand the business standpoint.
Where did that intention come from? Did it come from your experience with the contractor in high school, or how did you get that fascination with being a builder?
That was part of it. I mean, it probably goes back to building ramps when I had bikes, right? I mean, I just enjoyed building things.
There you go. Okay.
I just enjoyed building things. My parents built a small cabin up in the White Mountains, and I think my sophomore year. And I went up there and helped build the cabin, and I just kind of fell in love with the building aspect of it. And, accounting and financing is fun, but you're on a spreadsheet, right? So I just never thought that I could be in an accounting software or be ingrained in numbers on paper for the rest of my life. I wanted to understand how the business aspect of it worked, but the idea of building things seemed a lot more exciting to me.
Yeah, no, I get that a lot on this show, believe it or not. But okay, that's great. So I mean, I imagine though what you learned in college from a business standpoint, if finance and accounting had helped you later on once you did start a business.
Yeah, no, for sure. When I went into the office after being in the field for a few years, that's when it started becoming more relevant to me. Right?
Sure.
Started with the purchasing side. I ran the purchasing side. Then I did land acquisition. And then I eventually got recruited to go run a real estate development company, which is actually in Texas.
Okay. All right. Right on.
So that's when it became more relevant. That's when I kind of fine tuned it.
I understand. Okay. And that was just before 2009, before the green construction thing hit, before the economy tanked, right? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. That was 2004 to 2009, basically.
Okay. Very cool.
And end of 2008.
Got it. All right. So you had your stint with this development company. Economy tanked. You got out of that, right? And then, sorry, I'm recapping this for myself too. Just you hit a lot of points really quickly, and I want to make sure our audience understands, the timeline. That's the tipping point when you started to kind of take it into an entrepreneurial direction. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I, sold my houses, saved the money. And I just knew that I wasn't going to work for someone else for the rest of my life. When I ran the real estate development company, I mean, I had a principal and a boss, but it felt very entrepreneurial, and I liked that aspect of it. It felt a lot different than working for a home builder, right?
Okay.
And so I saw an opportunity. I candidly, when I started the energy efficiency business, the retrofit business, which is now Reeis, I mean, I knew what I was going to do, but I also knew, the Feds threw something like $50 billion at it. Plus, they had all these tax incentives, plus these creative finance tools. And nobody was really developing the finance tools in California. So going out there and helping develop those finance tools, I knew that I didn't know exactly how the day-to-day operations of the business were going to work when I started, even though I came from the building side and I understood the building standpoint of it, but I hadn't run a subcontracting company before. But I also knew that if you could offer a financing tool that had no personal underwriting, no out-of-pocket costs, and then there was all these incentives involved, and it was a service that once people understood it, would probably want it, and some of it was a necessity-based component anyway, the air conditioning, insulation, and everything else, I knew that it would take off.
Sure.
And so, candidly, the reason why we started the Phoenix office, which is now Reeis, is that was our learning. Right. That was the year that we learned how to do this. Yeah. If that makes sense. And obviously it was a lot longer than a year that we learned how to do it, but that was the start of it.
Yeah. And I want to unpack that just a little bit. And aside from the tactics, right? Because I'm not going to ask you, what you learned as far as like how to retrofit a home, what questions to ask, to make this happen and stuff that I think is all kind of presumed. But what did you learn from a standpoint of just like basic mindset shift, right? Of opening this business and doing this. You said you had partners, I think, right?
At the beginning I did, yeah.
Okay, so at the beginning you did. I mean, what lessons did you learn that first year that you could share with our audience that they could take away, maybe if they're in the same boat starting a business of their own?
So I never realized it until just now. But when I got out of college, I got a job as a superintendent. I moved in with my parents, and I spent the first 6 months just putting cash in the bank so I could buy a house, right? so I could buy a house, remodel it, and then I was going to move a couple of my buddies into it, and they would pay my mortgage, and I would live in the master for free, sort of thing. So, funny story, the HR team called me about 3-4 months into working there, and they said, "Hey, Todd, there's something wrong. Like, none of your checks have cashed. Like, what's, have you not been getting paid this whole time working here?" I'm like, "No, the checks are in my drawer." And they said, "What are you doing? You're not cashing your checks?" And I said, "Well, if I put the money in the bank, I might spend it, right?" So I did that for 6 months and banked enough money to put a down payment on a house and have a little bit of reserve cash. And so I eventually ended up going to cash all the checks and start regularly cashing the checks, and still not spending the money. But when I started this business, I had saved a bunch of money in anticipation of doing something. And then I moved back in with my parents for, what ultimately was quit my job at the end of January. I think it was probably mid-February. And I lived with my parents until late May. And then, just, and part of the reason why I did that, I could afford a place, obviously, at that point in my life. But the reason why I did it was it created this hunger, right? Like, you got to get out of your environment, right? I wanted it to be incredibly difficult for myself so that it motivated me to get it done faster. Does that make sense?
No, you know what? That actually makes perfect sense. I'm reading this book right now called Deep Work. Apparently everybody on the planet has read it except for me. I don't know. I'm a little late to the party sometimes, but there was a section in it that kind of explains exactly what you just said, to put yourself in an uncomfortable position where you feel like you need to move forward or get out. In order to get out, you need to move forward. Right. And so it almost forces you to focus that much more intensely on whatever it is that you're doing, So in your case, that's, starting and building a business. So it's funny to hear you say that now, because I just read this, I think it was last night or the night before, in this section. But no, that to answer your question, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that's definitely it's unique. It's a unique way of doing it, but there's a self-awareness piece involved that I really love. So hats off to you on that, man.
Well, the other part of it also was I didn't have to think about anything, right? Like, all my food, the food was always full. The fridge was always full. I wasn't paying bills. I wasn't worried about much, right?
Ma, meatloaf.
Yeah, right. It wasn't quite that bad, but it was. It definitely made my life hyper concentrated on one thing.
No, I think that there's a lot of value to that. On a serious note, I really do, and I think that's something that our audience can take away. It doesn't have to be necessarily living with your parents, right, or moving back in with your parents, but a situation like that you can endure, but puts a little emphasis on, hey, I need to get this done so I can move forward, right? I can do this so I can have something more, something better. And, this is putting me on a path to do that. So I think that can be incredibly valuable. I appreciate you sharing that with the audience. All right, good. So moving on.
I think, just to speak further on that,
please,
having gone through probably, 3 or 4 like challenging, hard times building this business. It's not a large business, but it's a decent sized business. We got a couple hundred employees, and, we're going to do probably 40 million in revenue this year. And I did it with no money, right? I did it with a couple hundred. I did it with I think I put $100,000 into it. And I have no capital partners. I have no partners whatsoever. My dad owns 10% of it. He also gave me $100,000. I put 88,000. My dad gave me 100. That's what I built a business off of. You run into times where, times get challenging. And every time that I've had really challenging times, like, one time I had to borrow some money from my dad and my parents, and I did that once, and I paid him 12% interest, and I paid him back in 4 months. But every time that I've had that challenging time where I was like, oh, I'm in trouble here, I need to move fast, it's made the business exponentially better. And it's whenever you get complacent is when you don't make the changes fast, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot.
Like I'm in this hyper mode right now because, I fear that we may have some change in the economy towards the end of this year and in the next year. And so I'm hyper focused right now in, creating, just shoring it up so we're better operationally in the way we do it and more efficient operationally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about that in a little bit as well, because I think that there's some value and there's some truth to that too. My guess is being able to ramp up with employees and revenue could only help what may be looming. So anyway, and before we get there, you said 3 to 4 different challenging times in the business. You listed a couple of examples there. Appreciate that. Any other examples of a challenging time that you want to share? Not only, what it was, but how you overcame it?
I've had a couple. I've had quite a few of them. Okay, so the most recent one. So in 2021, I stopped doing subdivision new construction work. New construction is a very challenging part of the business to make money at. The margins are low, the warranty obligations are high. You're somewhat relying on someone else to do their job well to not create inefficiencies in your business. And you're working on a lower margin product when somebody else is inefficient and it causes you to be inefficient. It's easy to not make money. So I decided to get out of that business. We were doing well with it prior. I wouldn't say we were doing great with it. But in 2020, obviously the COVID deal happened, and then material became impossible to get, equipment became impossible to get, labor became impossible to get. Cost of business went up, couldn't keep up with price escalation with the builders. Just said, what, this makes no sense. We're capacity constraint in at all avenues, right? All avenues, material, equipment, labor, you name it, management, you name it. So I'm just not going to do it anymore. So I decided to get out of that business. So that was an incredibly challenging time because material prices and equipment prices were changing, every 90 days.
Yeah.
And things were just stuck, right? So, we had start orders that, when we get a start order, it's 3-4 months before we're in there. And if that start order is delayed several months because of concrete and wood and then us and everybody else that can't get their materials. So now it's 6 months old, you're on 6-month-old pricing, your materials change twice from there, all of a sudden you're doing houses for free and then you can't get the equipment. So you're going back and doing things 2 and 3 times, So I had to come to grips with, how it degraded margins in 2021 and the cash flow challenges that came out of that. And the crazy thing happens when you tell a builder, hey, I'm not going to do your work anymore. I know we have a contract to do this whole subdivision, but it's not happening, right? They tend to not like that, right? They want that cheaper price. They got to go out to bid, and then they got to use today's prices versus 6-9 month old prices. And then they realize that, it's going up 20, 30%. And, so it had to dig deep, right? Like get into conversations. Well, you're obligated to do it. Well, it's a force majeure and contract event. You want to litigate it? Okay. Well, will you help us? Let's just get through and make a smooth transition. It required, digging a little deeper and saying, hey, this is tough business. And it was a financial challenge, right? So extended credit lines out, then had to figure out how to pay those down. And, it hurt financially. But I would tell you this, being now we're in 2023, got out of this stuff. We finished projects into 2022. That was it was a couple $1 million business for us a year. Probably $3-4 million. And I just said, hey, look, we're getting rid of $4 million worth of business. And that's just how life goes. So we're either going to dramatically cut costs to not for this lost revenue, or we're going to figure out how to grow other places. Mm-hmm. And, testament to the team, we were able to do that. We gave up a $4 million business and we still grew. So, that's kind of probably my most recent challenge.
No, that's incredible. I appreciate you sharing, because I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, and you and I both know it's not what you make, it's what you keep, right? So you got to look at that bottom line. You got to be really honest with yourself. I'm in the mechanical space too. I don't do a ton of new builds, but I did sign a contract to build a new home in November of 2020. So, and thankfully that was a fixed rate contract, but to your point, the builder probably wasn't too happy. But I got to see, my point is I got to see a lot of the trades firsthand, from a consumer perspective on how all of this was affecting that as well, and it was real, and I'm, on the back end, I'm in the, I'm in the mechanical trades, commercial appliance trades, so I'm seeing it from that perspective, and then I'm seeing it from a consumer perspective. But you're absolutely right. I mean, when you make those tough decisions, and sometimes you have to as a business owner, right? I mean, not sometimes, you have to as a business owner take a step back and realize, what do you have to sacrifice now to gain later? And this is a perfect example of that. I mean, that's a huge, I mean, when you said cash flow hit, man, I'm thinking like, even if your margins were slim on that, like the cash flow that comes from it, is dispersed and used in other areas of your business. So, that's like a gut check right there, but ultimately the right decision,
Yeah. And, you still have the warranty burden of that, and you don't have the cash flow burden. And I'm like at the tail end of the warranty burden, and it's like, we're counting the days.
I'm sure you are. All right. So,
I mean, we're real, like I'd say a funny story. It's like these warranty provisions, you've got a warranty obligation and you adhere to it. And, sometimes that isn't, the client doesn't realize that, right? Like, hey, I didn't manufacture your piece of equipment. You've been in there for 3.5 years and you haven't done any maintenance, and it broke and you have to pay to fix it. And people don't like to hear that. So the vast majority of like our negative reviews I mean, I would say 95% of our negative reviews are new construction related to unrealistic warranty obligations, right?
Yep.
My kid's bedroom's a little warm. Your builder put the cheapest stuff available in, and you're a little uneven.
And also it's 120 degrees out. So.
Yeah, right, for sure. So, man, I would say it was the best decision I've made.
Yeah.
But it was a 1 year or 18 months of hardship. I don't want to say hardship, but challenges.
Yeah, sure. And these are the things and the decisions that people need to know that you're going to have to make as a business owner, especially in the spaces that we're talking about, especially in these skilled trades. So I want to pivot a little bit to more of positive, I guess. We talk about challenges, the overcoming of that is positive, but I want to talk about what you do today, and what is it you love about what you do? Like you strike me as the type of person, and you've kind of even said it before, listen, like you got out of certain things because you weren't in love with it, but you're still doing what you're doing now. So what is it that you love about what you do?
This might sound a little odd, but I learn, like I learn stuff every single day. So like what I was doing before I got on this podcast is I've been so frustrated with digital marketing people. And it's just been a challenge for me this year as I try to, we're all our growth right now is focused on the consumer business. We have total organic growth on our IS Supply business just because of our reputation. But the homeowner service business is, to me, the biggest opportunity for us because, the consolidation and all the merger and acquisition that occurred. And there's just no more locally owned businesses in this space. Yeah. So I think it's a unique opportunity because we just operate a little differently as a locally owned kind of business instead of a private equity owned business. So I just got frustrated. I finally I fired my marketing agency, hired a new marketing agency. Now they're telling me all the things that we did wrong in the last 6 months. And if we had done them 4 months ago, we would be in great shape. So now it's this, drag race to the finish. And I can't get, I need 4 landing pages up, right? So I started the end of last week and I can't get, it's like a week goes by. So I taught myself how to build website pages the last 48, 72 hours. And so now I'm building land. And believe it or not, WordPress is not very complicated, right? So I just, it's like, and trust me, building website pages is not exciting. It's a little tedious, but now it's like opened up this whole new avenue of like, now that I know how easy it is to build these, now I can teach somebody how to do it, and we can control that whole space. So that's just a weird story from today, if you will. But it's that constant like learning process, growing process. And then more importantly, I've got a couple different divisions in the business, and, I've got a lot of people that, I want to call them relatively young, right? Like under 30, that now are running those divisions because they started with me as a technician, moved up the chain of command. Then I brought them in as a project manager, an assistant project manager. They worked underneath me. I taught them how to do everything, taught them how to estimate, now they're running divisions all on their own, and they're 26, 27, 28 years old. Now, granted, I oversee it, but that to me is really cool, right? So, and I got a 26-year-old kid that's running a $15 million business unit.
Wow.
And he doesn't come to me very often. And he doesn't make that many mistakes. He makes less mistakes than I do.
Well, he's not trying to build websites. Let's be fair, okay?
Yeah, fair enough. I'm making a lot of mistakes on my website.
There you go. No, that's amazing, and I like that you said that, because it comes down to, listen, that's a through and through true blood entrepreneurial mindset right there. You do what you have to do. You learn what you have to learn to get the job done. Doesn't matter what the job is half the time, right? And that's kind of what makes us entrepreneurs. So I really like that you said that. I want to.
Well, I will tell you this, Josh.
Go ahead.
Point of the web. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
The point of the website, the point of the landing page story is, like, I'm not going to build landing pages, right? The point of the landing page story is that, having now on my third marketing agency in the last 12, 18 months. And marketing is my biggest challenge, because I feel like it, ends up being like this black hole you just put money into. I just realized that you have to learn it so that you can hire somebody to do it for you. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And so, like, the idea of the landing page was more, part of it was that my family's in San Diego and I'm in Phoenix. I fly back and forth for July and a little bit of June. And so I just have a ton of time in my hands that I could either sit here and watch a movie, or I could sit here and teach myself how to build a landing page, so that in the future I can manage, marketing agencies. But the last 2 weeks of just learning that business, now I'm not an expert in it. You couldn't hire me to do it. I'm not good enough at it, but I know enough now to be dangerous enough to hire the correct person and manage the correct person. And so now it's like this whole new mindset in my brain of, now that you understand how digital marketing is starting to work, and if you spend another 30, 45, 90 days continuing to learn this process, especially with all these AI tools, the next business venture that you're involved in, you've got a leg up, right?
Yeah.
Because if you can figure out how to make the phone ring, you're one step ahead of the curve.
That's right. No, I appreciate you closing the loop on that. I think that's important for the audience to understand, and there's a lot of truth to that. As you say that, I'm looking back on my journey through entrepreneurship, and you're right. Before I hired technicians, I had to learn how to fix something. Before I hired a COO, I had to learn how to operate a business. Before, to your point, I hired, I have in-house marketing, but before I hired a marketing guy, I had to know terminology, at least, of what I was looking for and how I wanted to be positioned and stuff like that. I didn't have to be an expert in it, but I had to know a little bit so I could hold somebody's feet to the fire of what I wanted, and I think that's important. Sure. That's really important. All right, cool. So moving forward, you said you got a lot of young people in your organization, and listen, you and I both know how difficult it is sometimes to get people in these industries, right? The skilled trades, recruiting, retention, all that is a big topic of conversation right now. So what are you doing? What are you doing differently in your organization, that these young people want to succeed and grow with your company?
Well, I will say, first of all, we're not age biased in any way.
Sure.
the young people example is just that, when you don't know any better, you're willing to learn. It's that fresh slate. It usually works pretty well. Again, we have an apprenticeship program. We're building a new office. We're building a full training seminar out there. I haven't put this in place yet, but what I'm getting ready to do, we're interviewing some training managers to bring in a training manager. But one of the things we're going to do is I don't want to say automate because that's the incorrect word. We're going to use technology solutions to help younger people in the trade. What I'll say green, everybody in construction uses the term green, right? Fresh to the trade, not as experienced as they want to be. We're going to use technology to help them train in the field, real time on the job, to give them some better confidence in what they're doing, to learn how to do air conditioning. So, and what we're doing with that is we've got a software tool that allows, so we're building what I'll call kind of, if I was being silly and fun, I would call it like the NASA Space Center, right? Like 5 large scale monitors, for a training manager, a senior service technician who's a training manager. Then he'll see on one screen the iPad of the technician. The iPad will be connected to Bluetooth to all of his meters and electrical meters and gauges and that sort of thing. They'll all be digital. So we're mandating a specific tool requirement to do that. So then he sees all the gauges and everything the technician's seeing. Then we've got these cameras that go on your head, like a headset camera. It goes behind your ear, and they can see exactly what the technician does. And then we use Service Titan, the software platform Service Titan. So then they have their Service Titan display up. So they see those 3 things. And then they've got their other monitor for whatever they need to do. That might be whether they, look up manuals and different things on the internet. So a young technician who's getting in the field, a lot of times, most of my competitors, the way they compensate their employees is it's just they call it performance-based pay, but it's just a 20% commission model, right? You're going to get 17 or 20% of everything you sell. Here's 2 weeks of training. Let's see how well you sell, right? And maybe they put them under a scenario where you're a maintenance tech before you're a regular tech, but they don't have the tools to give these guys the confidence to be offering the right products and services to the client. We don't do the performance-based pay model. I just think it creates a conflict between the customer and the technician and the customer and the company. We pay hourly, and we do create spiffs and different things of that nature. But what we're trying to do is create a tool where a young technician has that resource to say, hey, senior technician, you're basically going to see everything I see. Walk me through where I could have done better. Mm-hmm. Walk me through what you see in this. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? And part of that is training. Part of that is making sure they deliver the right solution to the customer. But part of it is just this gigantic confidence build that, when it's your turn to go talk to the customer, you're confident what you're doing. And confidence is, gosh, it's a huge percentage of doing this job, right? So that's one tool. Obviously, when we're breaking ground July 11th on a new building down the street from us here, and we're building a full training facility there. We're going to do some of the, from a technology standpoint, we're going to do the, what are they called, this virtual reality training. Yeah, we're doing virtual reality training. So we're creating some virtual reality training set groups there. We're doing some other things that I don't know if necessarily. Now the other things culturally that we're doing, I don't think help attract young people. I think the technology is one of the things for young people. We do have what we call Reeis career pathing. So we do, and I don't want to use the term life coach because you and I both know, Josh, been around here, you know the stigmatism on a life coach, right? Not saying anything negative about the life coach. No. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're trying to do what we call career pathing and life pathing. And we're trying to, our operations guys are really good at it. It's just, hey, what do you want out of life? What are you trying to accomplish? Is it, you want to get a new car, or you want to buy a house, or you want to do this? And so we have programs that are geared towards financial literacy and helping people get where they want to be, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, young people might say they want to go buy a car. Other people say, hey, look, I've got 3 kids, I'm in an apartment, I want to figure out how to own a home. And so we do these quarterly meetings with people that participate in this group to say, what's your goal? Where do you want to be in your career? Where do you want to be in your life? And how do we get you there? And what do you need to do to get there? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And a lot of it, it's not a ton of patting on the back. It's this is what you need to do to get there, right? Now there's some patting on the back, don't get me wrong, but it's really kind of a tool to say, hey, we're going to get you where you want to go if you're willing to put the work in, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then we, as an organization, our management team, obviously we have quarterly and annual goals, and we have our weekly management meetings. In the summer, we do it bi-weekly just because we're so busy. But all of my management team has these goals that they need to accomplish, and it's amazing what happens when you set together a plan for somebody and show them how to get where they want to be.
Yeah.
Then if they don't get there, because they don't meet their obligation on the plan, it's, sooner or later it clicks.
Sure. No, I love that a lot. This is something that I preach quite a bit, and it's actually going to lead me into my last question. I want to be respectful of your time here too. We're at the bottom of the hour. But I want to interject, and I want to say this career pathing thing is I think the way that the world is trending, the way that the world is going, it is going to become ever more important for companies to begin doing this, and not from a generalization perspective, but from your perspective of an individuality thing, right? Success is individual to the person. So whether that's a car, whether that's a house, whether that's financial freedom, whether that's travel, whether that's whatever, to be able to have an employer that they can sit down with and help them create a plan, hold their feet to the fire, right? Because it is their responsibility at the end of the day. People crave that, right? I mean, we didn't have that, I'm guessing you didn't have anybody to sit you down and say, hey, this is how you can succeed, right? As long as you do this, this, and this. I mean, man, from everything that I've heard today, you figured a lot of shit out on your own, forgive my saying, but that is definitely important, I think, to the culture, not only of, your business, but the way that the world is going. So that's awesome. And I think that there's a lot of value there. And that kind of leads me to my last question, right, to you. And this is something that I talk about on the show quite a bit, about success and about how the skilled trades, whatever your perception is of the trades, it can't allow you to live whatever version or definition of success is yours that you have, right? Because we don't all fit in that neat little box that society says, this is what success is. So I'm going to ask you, Todd, I don't know, you probably do a lot of asking of this question, but maybe haven't been asked this question, but what is your definition of success? How do you define that?
How do I define, sorry, you broke up a little bit, Josh, but how do I define success?
Correct.
For myself or for teammates?
No, for you. Overarching, on your deathbed, and you want to look back and say that I lived a successful life. How do you define that?
Josh, that's a tough question because I never think I'm successful. I think that I feel like I'll meet the next goal, and then I'll be looking backwards saying, who cares, right? We've got this goal to meet in the next round. It's honestly freedom to spend time with my family. I have 2 young children, and I don't discount the time I spend with them. So I would say I'm successful in the sense that I get to spend and do a lot of things with them, right? I have the financial capacity to do that. Success to me, that's a tough question. I mean, I guess that's my biggest thing that I think that I would say if somebody asked me if I was successful, I'd say yeah, because I'm financially stable and I get to spend all the time in the world I want with my children. And I still, I work a lot, but I still make that the priority of my time. Yeah. I said success for me, I guess, is enjoying what you're doing and still having the freedom to do other things.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't enjoy going to work every day, I mean, it's like, what's the point, right?
That's right. You work to live or live to work.
Yeah. So, I don't really subscribe to that saying because like I enjoy going to work. So it's, going to work isn't like this gigantic chore, like, oh, I've got to get up and, make it to the office today.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy seeing things develop and seeing things grow and seeing things succeed. And so I don't consider it a chore. It keeps my mind busy and, having something to aspire to next, whether that be a 3-month, a 1 year or a 5-year goal, like that's what gets me up in the morning, right? That and my family. And if I didn't have it, like my wife was joking because, everybody was buying air conditioning companies and home service companies the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And people say to me, why didn't you sell? I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Like, I don't want to play golf just 5 days a week. Yeah. Right. And I mean, granted, I would probably come up with the next business idea and do the next business, but I just saw so much runway in front of me and so much opportunity in front of me with the change of the industry. I thought, I'm going to sell that for money was absurd.
Yeah.
Right. So, success to me, I guess, in a simple statement is enjoying what you do, developing, seeing a growth path in front of you, and having some security and stability to do other things that are meaningful to you.
Love that answer. Appreciate the transparency there. And I could tell your brain was working that out through what you were saying, man.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for this. No. I wasn't prepared for the question.
No, that's great. Sure. That's why I ask it, man. If I'm being honest, because it makes you think, right? And this is important information, especially, with my audience. I challenge them with that all the time. Because if we don't consider ourselves a success, then what are we doing? And that can be whatever we define. So anyway, man, I do appreciate it. I'm not going to keep you much longer. Before I let you go completely, where can people find you? Where can people find your company?
So the company Reeis, Reeis.com. If you want to reach out to me, the easiest way would just be to send an email to service@reeis.com. I get so many marketing solicitors that reach out to us that I don't want to put my real email address in because I already get 150 emails a day.
Don't do that.
But the team will send anybody that's not asking me to give them money. Right.
Perfect.
Buy the latest marketing widget. So.
There you go. All right, cool, man. Well,
appreciate it, Josh.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on the show today, man, and spending your valuable time with us today. Thank you so much, Todd.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.